Hello, my name is Lauren. I'm a senior at Purdue University Northwest, and this is my presentation on Five Nights at Freddy's as a transmedia franchise. Let's jump right in. I had first heard of the game in the summer of 2014. I was little more than a high school student enjoying a night with a handful of friends. Golden Corral, Maryville, late at night. This was tradition alongside D&D nights and talking cartoons and video games. After piling my plate high with more than my fair share, I returned to our table with one of my friends talking about some new horror game. Five Nights at Freddy's it was called. I had heard of the game before that day, probably from a Let's Play or a game theory, but I avoided it like the devil. This little girl did not like horror. Not haunted houses, not horror movies, not nothing. And certainly not horror video games. No one could convince me to play it, especially since I was, and still am, terrible at video games. I didn't get to watching any Let's Plays until around the time the second game had been released about a year later. But I cracked. I checked out MatPat's theories and Markiplier's Let's Play on YouTube, opened it a different tab so I didn't have to look at the jump scares, and slowly sunk into the intrigue of this transmedia franchise. So, how did this work where others didn't? Well, firstly, the game was different from what was popular at the time. Most games followed Slender's formula, which was find clues, run around with a flashlight, don't get jump scared, and so on. Five Nights at Freddy's had you stationary, limited, and waiting. Your controls consisted of a series of buttons and camera monitors, which you had to use your energy sparingly on. Avoiding death and failure depended on you keeping a level head, saving energy, and maintaining very, very precise time management. If you stayed on a camera too long or mismanaged the door button, that was it. You're dead. And since then, indie horror games have become more and more abstract and imaginative, not to mention popular. See games like Dreaming Mary, Albino Lullaby, and Fran Bow, for example, and compare them to classics such as Slender the Arrival, Resident Evil, and Dead Space. But it's not just the gameplay that brought people in. After a fashion, the gameplay is pretty simple and can get repetitive. But there's also a story beneath it. If one had played the game enough, played through the 6th night and the custom night, and paid attention to the details, one would pick up on certain little nuggets of information. Articles about missing children, your pink slip, your paycheck, the voice recordings, and other details. This trend only continued with the following games, even though the knowledge community that arose from it wasn't really intended to happen, and that it's something of a grassroots franchise. It had gotten to the point where 2 books had been released and where a movie is supposed to be on its way. And yes, while both are supposed to add more details to the story and reimagine it, this is not the best part, or at least my favorite part, of its transmedia aspect comes in. Okay, let me back up and start with the basics. Promotion. Normally when it comes to video game promotion, you get a handful of options. Not all of them really work out for you though, unless you have a really good game to back it up. Not to mention, a game that is hopefully complete when you put it on the market. Trailers look pretty, sure, and gaming conventions like E3 and PAX will give you a chance to grind something out to show off. I don't always recommend open access or demos because more often than not, the players won't come back for the full game. The hype you build for the game can either surpass or underrepresent the actual quality of the game, like with No Man's Sky, and even after that, it doesn't make the game immune to being cancelled, as with the unfortunate example of PT from Silent Hill. Granted, there are outlets that a video game franchise can dip their toes in. They are not doomed to fail either, and sometimes you can get something good, new, and novel, especially if you love the franchise, characters, and the fans. Which brings us to an example that sadly did not work out. Yes, once upon a time, Halo was good. I have fond memories of watching my dad and my sister playing co-op back when all we had on this franchise was its first and second Xbox games. But now, years later, with books and even film, some questionable choices have been made. Forcing fans to read the books to get more of the story, the decline in video game quality, disregarding the canon and the sequels. These, amongst other choices, are not how you show love to your fans. And with that, it's easy for your transmedia franchise to fail. What people talk about now, if at all, is the later sequels and what it does wrong. Granted, FNaF's books aren't too much to look at either. But FNaF isn't just writing on books or even the games. Like I said, FNaF is writing on small story details. Scott Cawthon, the creator of this franchise, purposefully leaves holes in its games and books. Taking part in both helps you understand the layered story in the other. But it's not necessary. Actually, it is. Okay, let me explain. Yes, you do need both the books and the games if you want the whole picture. Like I said, there are holes in each that they fill together. But you still get enjoyment out of it if you stick to one or the other. There are details sprinkled in both that get you thinking and forming your own ideas, even if you've never read a page of the silverized, older, twisted ones. And while I haven't read the books myself, I can imagine someone enjoying them even if they had never heard of the game. The point is, there are little Easter eggs, multiple endings, and information nuggets that tell you about the world and the lore of FNaF even outside of the games. I wouldn't be surprised if you found a few origami unicorns in the games with the books. Some of the details, such as the toolbox at the end of FNaF 4, lines of dialogue, or even the lamp in FNaF 5, can help you view the events of the story in a new light. But it doesn't end there, hence the theories continue beyond the games. And this comes in the form of Scott's websites. While the website for his spin-off game, FNaF World, which is FNAFworld.com, is still up, we're still going to focus on the main website the creator uses, which is ScottGames.com. Teasers were released on both of Scott Cawthon's websites between the time of releases for these games. These images are seen as valuable enough to be archived by fans. And the teasers did more than promote the upcoming games. They also give you more details to pick apart. What people had to do, and what became second nature to some, was to look at the pages at different angles. That meant brightening the images and inspecting the source code of pages after each update. Below, we have an example of the former, a teaser that was released for system location after an audio file from one of the animatronics was leaked. Cancelled due to leaks. Oh no, sister location has been cancelled? No way, how could this have happened? Actually, no, it was not cancelled. See, this is the same image after brightening it. And the text that is now visible reads as follows. It's for the story. And this is what's becomes for the course when it came. And this is what's become par for the course when it came to promoting the games. Whether the mangle appears dead after advertising a cute and fun RPG for these characters, or whether the creator himself changes the website to ask questions during a live stream of someone who was well known for his FNaF theory videos. Even inspecting the source codes of these teasers yields interesting details. It's how we found out about the rental system in the 5th game and the further emphasis on the year of 1987, a key date in FNaF lore. The most recent update before the cancellation of the 6th game was the two websites in question having a conversation with each other through their source code. And as a result of all these little clues and about the holes that are left purposely open, people kept talking about it. And talking. And talking. And I think that's ultimately why this transmedia franchise is so successful. Even if the hype has kinda died. Even if the 6th game was cancelled and the movie won't be coming out for a while. Mr. Cawthon, you've managed to give us something new and interesting, got us thinking and theorizing, kept the fun going long after the 5th night was over, and we got our paychecks. Even someone like me, who has never even touched the games, will remember the enjoyment you brought me and my friends. I'll probably tell my kids about it, and you. Maybe all the talk wasn't intended. Maybe this was all your last shot at being able to do something you love for a living and you didn't know if you could make it. But hey, look where you are now. Look at who all's with you. You did a good job, Scott. Thanks. And that's about all I got. These are the sources, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. Feel free to leave them in the comments, and I can't wait to hear from you. Cheers!